Good morning, CAD 255. I hope you guys are all doing well and enjoying SolidWorks so far. All right, today we're going to start talking about assemblies. Uh, Assemblies are a pretty big part of um, SolidWorks. Uh, Typically, you'll draw some parts and then you'll put those parts together. And when you put those parts together, we call that an assembly file. So um, we're just going to go ahead and get into it. So I've got these three parts down here on the lower left, and I'll just get a pin, and we have a little kind of hex cap up here, and then we have a kind of an arm, basically. So we are going to go ahead and put those together, and so we're going to create a new file. So we're going to say File, New, and so instead of saying part, we're going to say assembly. I'll click OK. And what you're going to notice is there's going to be, we're going to have a different set of toolbars in assembly files. The first thing it wants to know is which part do you want to start in the assembly. So typically the part that you start with will be the one that stays centered and everything builds onto. And you can change that later, but it's typically a good idea to insert the part that you feel like is going to be the main part, the part that's going to stand still, that other parts might join or rotate around or move on or something like that. So let's go ahead and just, we're going to put the rod as the main part here. And when I click the green check mark, you're going to see it drop down and kind of home itself basically in this drawing. So this I can't drag around. If I take my cursor and try to drag it, it doesn't work. The next thing you're going to see is we've got our assembly tab here, and this is going to have most of the tools that we want to be using right up here. These two are the two most important buttons that you're going to use in the assembly file. So we're going to say insert component, and we're going to start adding a component. So let's go ahead and add the rotating arm. And you're going to see now that I can move this all over the place. I can just click and drag, and this moves all over the place. This one is still locked down in position. And then in order to place these parts together, like to get them lined up and oriented and constrained properly in the place we want them to be, we're going to use this mate tool right here. So we've got a paper clip, and then you're going to see that we've got a bunch of different mate types. So let's say we wanted to mate this inside surface with the outside surface of this pin. When we select two faces or basically two faces, surfaces, edges, SolidWorks is going to do a little bit of guessing as to what we want to do. It's now guessing we want a concentric mate, meaning the center points of those surfaces line up. And usually it's right, like 90% of the time it's right. But we could change that. We could make it tangent. We can make it perpendicular. We do some different things with it, but for right now, we're going to leave it at concentric. I'll say OK. So now this will move around, and it'll move probably in places we don't want it to. So that means we have to add another mate to it. So if we rotate this way, I want to make this surface coincident with this surface. So again, I'm going to select this surface, and go there, and click OK. So now we've got, we can rotate around this direction, but you'll notice that the pin is not moving itself. It's just this part because the pin has been basically locked down because it was the first one we drug in there. So we can, so far we've only mated surfaces, but we can mate edges, we can mate individual points, and those are basically the main ones that main features that we will mate together. Well, let's go ahead and we'll add another component. So we'll say insert component, and this time we'll go to top. So that's good. Okay. So you'll see that this is kind of upside down. I want this cut to align with the top there. It's a good idea to get this somewhat oriented in the position that you want. So to do that, so if I right click, if I use or if I left click and use the left mouse button, I can drag a part. If I right click and drag, I can rotate the part. So again, right click or left click and drag moves the part. Right click and drag will rotate the part. So you can rotate your things to see if you've got it where you want it to be. So what we're going to do is let's go ahead and mate an edge. We'll stay there. I'll click mate. We've got the one edge selected, and we'll go ahead and click this edge right here. You'll see it goes on there just like that. So not fully constrained yet. It can still slide along, into space. So we want to add a couple more mates to this. So let's go ahead and we can maybe this surface to this surface, and it flipped it. So over here we can say mate alignment, and we can flip these back and forth. So if you drag it or forget to drag it and it lines up in the orientation that you didn't want it to be, you can go ahead and flip those mates over there. Okay. Actually, kind of canceled out of there. Let's see. We're going to redo this again. So right now, you can rotate like that. And we want to get this mated to the top surface. Go ahead and flip that. We'll say okay. All right. So now if we drag it over, it's close, but it looks like we definitely have to get at least one more mate in there. So let's go ahead and we'll drag it into space a little bit, and we'll mate that edge with this edge here. I'll click OK. All right, and now we've got, this is all fully constrained. So now we can't drag it anywhere. It's going to stay where it belongs. This is still going to rotate, but this is held into position nicely. So that's the basics of an assembly, and you might be able to infer why that is so useful. So you can build entire machines in assemblies. You can model parts together, see if parts run into each other, see if things are operating and fitting together like you think they're going to. And so that's the basics of the mate file. And so we're going to go ahead and start working with some mates this week. So I'll assign stuff, something in Solid Professor, and then I'll post an assignment that you can upload to D2L. The thing about mates, or the thing about assembly files, when you turn those in, I'm only going to have you turn in a couple of these, and I'm not going to do it right away. You are going to need to submit the part file and the assembly file. So if I were to submit this assembly, I would need to submit the top part file, this part file, this one as well, and then the assembly file. So that's 4 total files that need to get uploaded. And then I need to download those and basically assemble them. Because if I just download an assembly file, SolidWorks needs to look for those parts in the computer to bring into the assembly file. So that's the tricky part. It gets a little bit more complicated when we're uploading, 4 part files or 4 files instead of just one. So I won't have you do it too often. I probably won't have you do it today, but I will have you submit an assembly file at some point. So, all right, let's keep going, and we'll talk to you soon.